Social justice and political correctness, two things seemingly celebrated by one side of the political spectrum and reviled by the other. That divide, the topic of a new book called Privilege Victims, and the author Eddie Scarry from the Washington Examiner is here. He's up late with me on the Final Five. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Who would you define, first of all, as privilege victims?
You.
Oh, okay.
No, so privileged victims, so this is the new class of people that we have in this country because they've realized and learned in a lot of cases, many cases on college campuses, that if you want to advance your own interests, and that can be money, that can be attention, you might want a job. If you want to advance your own interests, you claim to have been oppressed, aggrieved, victimized on the account of your gender, your race, or your sexuality. And this all is tied to the social justice ideology, the social justice mob. They're the ones who preach this stuff. And then in the subtitle of my book, I have the culture fascist. And that's the people who control the culture in our country. That's real quick, the national media, the Hollywood complex, academia, that's where it starts. And then, of course, it's infected our American politics, so it's a lot in Washington, but in particular, the Democratic Party.
I just want to point out the first chapter of the book. The title is something. Present-day America, where the crap rises to the top.
Right, yeah. And that's
a strong way to start it.
Right, so it's a play on the cream rises to the top.
Right.
So, yeah, that's the introduction to the book, which is very good. Privileged victims. But, yes, that's just the beginning.
Yeah. I think one of the big developments over the last couple of years we've seen that's shaken up politics, Hollywood, college campuses, is the Me2 movement, which I think you can look at that from the surface and say there was a noble push behind that. But that even has seemed to have taken turns along the way where you have some people, Matt Lauer, Charlie Rose, their behavior was finally called on the carpet. But there are other people along the way that you say have been unfairly maligned.
Well, and one of those people that I do believe was unfairly maligned was Matt Lauer. The one person who accused him, well, first, when it first started, on the record, was someone who said this was consent, or the only person they had on the record said it was consensual.
Right.
Thereafter, the one who got him fired came out later and said this was a transactional relationship, and she regretted it. But yes, there are other cases. I think Bill O'Reilly's another one. But this is not a partisan book.
Right.
A really big one is Joe Biden. They tried to Me Too him. There was one woman who said, you know, she was covered in the Washington Post where he puts his head up against hers as a photo, and he's basically like consoling her about her own rape case or sexual assault case. And she had that picture framed in her home, and then she said, but once the Me Too movement picked up, I went ahead and took it down because I thought that this was inappropriate.
Yeah.
No, he did these things in public. This wasn't Me Too. But again, and this may not be in particular to her, this may not be a case particular to her, but the Me Too thing has become a way to take down people. You see this a lot on college campuses.
One topic you also brought up in the book was the squad, the four freshman Democratic congresswomen who gained a lot of attention. Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, who really from day one, the day she was sworn in, said we're going to impeach the MFer before anything happened. You talk about Ilhan Omar in this.
Right, because this goes for all of them, really, but let's just take Ilhan Omar and AOC. The sole reason that they're put on covers of magazines, glossy magazine, raved about within the media, they have documentaries about them despite having accomplished nothing so far, is because they wallow in their victimhood. They claim oppression, they claim grievance, and that's what we talk about in Privileged Victims. But that's how they get ahead, is they say, well, I've been victimized because I'm a Latina. I'm victimized, you hear this every single day almost from Ilhan Omar, is that it's racist. Whatever criticism of me is racist. And that's how you get people to shut up. And again, this is a totally unremarkable Congress people so far. Maybe they'll go on to do great things. But the way that they're elevated, which is what I'm talking about in my book, the way they're elevated without merit is a total thing. It's in our culture, and it is governed by the social justice mob, the social justice ideology, the social justice movement.
Yeah. All right. Eddie Scarry is here. The book is called Privileged Victims. He brought a copy with him just so you know what it looks like when you see it on the shelves. Good to see you again, Eddie.
Good to see you. Thank you.
Back after this in Final Five.